today I get to chat with Karen Worcester, and I just love this story. And I can't wait for you to hear what it's all about and how it came about. Karen, the story begins, as I understand it. You have beautiful land there on the coast of Maine. Your husband loves the property, loves what he does, and he grows evergreens and makes holiday wreaths. And one year, uh, at the end of the season, he had a truckload, which, if I recall, was about 5,000 wreaths left over. And let's call that the lemons.
Yeah.
And now the lemonade side of the story is, what did he do with that? And it came to mind that there were people that could intrinsically benefit from those, even though it wouldn't cause a direct financial benefit to you. But tell us the story of how you and your husband turned that truckload of lemons into lemonade.
Well, it was kind of late in the season, and they were beautiful fresh wreaths, and he just basically he overbought the wreaths. I mean, and but he wanted to do something good with them, and he recalled being in Arlington National Cemetery. Always been very patriotic. He didn't serve. He was in college during Vietnam, and he got the idea from being in Arlington when he won a trip there as a 12-year-old paper boy. He was a paper boy for the Bangor Daily News, and he got to go to Washington, D.C.
I love that.
And he wasn't on his best behavior. He was 12 years old, but what he always remembered and spoke to the kids about was how Arlington was, even as a 12-year-old, it impressed him, the number of graves and the number of people that were buried there. So he said, maybe if I could get permission to take these wreaths and take, one or two of the kids and just go and place them on the graves as a thank you for all the opportunities we've had as a family in this amazing country. And he made a few calls to a couple of local politicians, and unbelievably, we got the opportunity to go. He did. He took one of our boys and a couple of volunteers, a local trucking company, God love them, Bluebird Ranch Trucking, said, yeah, load them on our truck. And we're like the hillbillies. Down we went to, Washington, D.C., and they put my husband in the group in the oldest section, section 27, which is the Civil War section. And it was so interesting to them. And as they laid every wreath, they couldn't help but say the names and the teaching opportunity for the kids, and just the impact of that, to be there with these young people and reading these stones. And there are a lot of unknowns there. So they came home, and it's all they talked about. One of my sons, Michael, went, and then there was another boy that worked for us. I've forgotten his name. And then met with some people down there that the politicians had pulled together, the Maine State Society, who are located in D.C. They're basically some people that were from Maine and moved to D.C. and didn't like it so much, so they have a society, and they all gathered down there. But they came out and helped, and so after that year, we went every year. We made the wreath special, and he'd take a different kid and a couple volunteers in Bluebird Ranch. They'd drive straight through, lay the wreaths, and every year they put us in a different section of the cemetery. And it went like that until 2005. And actually 2005, from 1992 to 2005 was the first year that I got to go. And we were back again in that same section, which we thought was kind of a God wink. And took two youngest daughters with us, and it had snowed that day, and a Pentagon photographer took a picture of the wreaths against the stones in the snow, and they put it on their news on their website, and it went viral, and it was crazy. So by January, my husband, to this day, he'd be embarrassed me telling you, but he has an email, but he never has sent an email in his life. He has people for that, He actually has one secretary who does that. And the same, his phone calls just kept coming in and coming in. He literally, by January, so this was 2005, by January 2006, he had about 4,000 emails and phone calls coming from all over the country. People, is this true? Can we do it? Can we help? We want to do it in our cemetery. And it was life altering for us. We just kept fielding the calls and trying to figure out what to do with it at that point. So.
And how has this impacted your life? 2005, you say, overbought, 5,000 left over. You can throw them away, you can give them away, or in this case, you guys decide we can pay tribute to other people. And by the way, along the way, teach a wonderful life lesson to Michael and our daughters, other young people, and really help remember the story. I love in your video that I encourage everybody to watch, and that panoramic shot of all those graves with all of those wreaths, holiday wreaths, to commemorate their sacrifice they made and just to pay tribute to them, their families, and more importantly, to our own memories, our own thoughts of the fact that others have given of themselves so that we can live well, live free, and provide for our families and our communities in ways that before the creation of this country weren't imagined.
So we actually have 6 kids, 9 grandkids. So I don't want to leave any kids out because you know how that would roll. But how it's impacted our family, I think, and how it's impacted other families is when you take that opportunity and and by the way, we couldn't do this without, we have about 3 million volunteers.
3 million volunteers.
3 million volunteers, and a third of them are kids, which makes my heart beat faster because those volunteers make this happen in a local community. So we're up in Maine, but every single one of these events that are held, or wreath laying events, people aren't there decorating graves. They are there with in person, placing a wreath and saying the name. And that impacts that community. It brings the community together. It teaches the kids that this is something besides a stone. This is a life. You know, whether they died as an elderly veteran or they died in combat, they stood up for us. So it impacted us so greatly that to be able to have our kids see that, and then how it brought these people into our life, the Gold Star families. It was in 2007 when things are, that's actually when it became a 501c3, by the way, in 2007, and we now have a board, and I am a volunteer executive director. But in 2007, I had a call from a group of Gold Star mothers that wanted to make the convoy trip with us. They wanted to go with us to Arlington.
Wow.
And long story short, I was in a, an upstairs office in a warehouse getting ready to go. And these women came in late at night. They were supposed to be going direct to the hotel, but the driver brought them to my office. And I remember hearing these moms coming up the stairs, and I got so emotional. I said, what am I going to say to these women? These women have buried their sons. As it happened, they all had lost their sons. And I was nervous. They came through the door and just embraced me. And they were talking, asking how many children I had, and then sharing about their kids. And we talked for an hour, and it was just sharing stories about raising our children and all that. And so they left, and I went out, got my car to go home, and I only had to drive about 2 miles. I got halfway home. I was crying. I still get emotional. I was crying so hard to think. It dawned on me that day, these people are no different than me. They didn't ask for the title of Gold Star. And I call my kids every night. And how they keep that memory alive is by sharing the stories. They want us to say the name. They want us to do that. And it was overwhelming for me. And at that point for me and for my family, because we've all felt that, it's like a responsibility. It's so important for us to teach the next generation, to teach them to love our country, and to teach them to love the country by the stories of these people that have given so much, who really understand the value of freedom. And it's just changed our lives.
Karen, you and your family are poster children for what it means to be part of a community and to serve that community. I so applaud what you're doing. When you talked about the opportunity that it was for you and your family, that's exactly where I went when I heard that we here at 1-800-Flowers were getting involved with you and Wreaths Across America. I thought, my wife's dad is buried here on Long Island at the Calverton National Cemetery. And I thought, what a wonderful an excuse for us to convene with our kids and grandkids and volunteer with you and to give us a reason to tell his story again. So my kids knew him, of course. He died in his early 80s. So, but my grandkids never knew him, and what an opportunity for us to hear from for my 7 grandkids. I can't keep up with you, Karen. You just
Well, we live in Maine, remember, there's not a lot to do up here.
well, I'll send you a TV.
Yeah, please do.
Uh, we have uh, we have 3 kids and 7 grandkids, but I thought, and they all live local to here on Long Island. So I said, what a wonderful opportunity to get together and plan to tell the story maybe the night before we go to the Calverton National Cemetery to help you guys place the wreaths, to tell the story about veterans and about people who serve, and in particular about their great grandfather and the sacrifice his wife, their great grandmother, made while he was off in the service during at the end of World War II for 3 years without coming home, and to tell this story. And I know we have 3 kids. My oldest is a daughter, then 2 sons. My oldest son, James, he developed a very special relationship with my wife's father, my father-in-law, and he was the only one who ever got him really to talk about his service. He was in the Air Corps in the Pacific, and saw a lot of really crazy and tough stuff. And he's the only one that really got my father-in-law, who's a wonderful man, to talk about it, and to get him to share those thoughts and memories with our grandkids would be a special opportunity for us as a family, and especially for our grandkids to start to learn that civic lesson of what distinguishes us from other countries, other cultures. Thanks for giving us that idea and that opportunity to join you in this service.
Well, we love what we do. And I will say that one thing that people don't understand about Wreaths Across America is that we work year round with our mission to remember, honor, teach. We work with other organizations. We work with the Gold Star Mothers. And one Gold Star mom, who's a retired teacher, has helped us develop full curriculum from kindergarten through grade 12 based on the characteristics of the United States military. And we try to teach kids not only how precious freedom is, but that we have a responsibility to keep freedom and pass it to the next generation. So we work with the Medal of Honor Foundation, Society, I'm sorry. We work with Ike Eisenhower Foundation, Random Acts of Kindness, the Vietnam Commemorative, and we all work together because these lessons are so important to the kids, and especially coming off COVID. We have to learn how to come back together as communities again, and as communities to think about the greater good, because we won't exist as a country if we don't start thinking about the greater good and pulling ourselves together. I say all the time, I wish that every day when Americans got up, they had the same tenacity and love of protecting and caring for this country that we had on 9/12. And that's one of the things I think that happens when we all come together. We take a minute to remember that. And we always ask that we say these names because we believe, we heard this saying once, and it just is so true. A person dies twice. The first time when their heart stops beating and the life leaves their body, but the final time is when the name is spoken for the very last time. And those names represent people who represent our children's history and their heritage. So it's up to us to make them love this country. I actually, Roger Donlin is the first Medal of Honor recipient from the Vietnam War, and such a mentor for me. And I asked him one time, Roger, what's the most important thing Wreaths Across America can do? And without skipping a beat, he said, we're at a time when we need to teach our children to love our country again. And that's what I love about Wreaths Across America. It's so hyper local. It's a national thing, but it's personal in the community that ties us together, because patriotism begins at home, goes to community, and then to country. And I think we need to be working on making sure our roots are planted solidly in patriotism.
That we die twice that you just told us about was in the video, and it was so touching to hear it. So what is it that happens at the gravesite? What do you ask the volunteers?
We always ask them to say the name out loud. And it's so impactful because we don't want people to rush. It's not a logistics thing about getting these decorated. It's about spending time. And even in cemeteries where we don't have full coverage, we ask that they stop by and say the names. In Arlington, Section 60 is where most of the current burials are. And if you go to Section 60 in Arlington National Cemetery in December on Wreaths Across America Day or on Valentine's Day or whenever, there are young families there. It's not unusual to see people even in December with a lawn chair and a can of beer and a couple of buddies and 2 or 3 little kids. That's part of their family. That's part of where they go to bring their family together. And every section in these military cemeteries was like that at one point as we've evolved. And so saying the names keeps them alive and reminds us every day that what we have, this freedom, that I don't even think we as a country sometimes understand what freedom is. And I think we sometimes demand freedom without realizing that there's a responsibility and to keep freedom and preserve it. But it just means so much to the families, and it means even more, I think, to the next generation, that they realize these are not stones. Every stone, behind every stone is a story, is what the Gold Star moms say.
Share a story with us, if you would, Karen, about different communities and how you've seen them come together and make an event out of this.
Oh gosh, there are so many. There are so many stories, and I think for me, I hear stories, but I see Arlington most. I go to Arlington the most, and I think even seeing it there, I think seeing it at Arlington, as families come to Arlington and then go home and start it in their own community, and we hear that time and time again.
I
And
bet. I bet.
we have teachers. We have some great teachers that go take our largest area of growth right now, because we do, I think we do all but 2 of the national cemeteries, most of the state cemeteries, but there are veterans buried in community cemeteries, and that's where we're growing. And teachers will take kids out into these cemeteries and have them write down the names, research them, and then go out as a community to place the wreath.
What a teaching moment.
And we do something else that helps in the community. We, a long time ago, when we started trying to figure out how we were going to do this 501c3, we wanted to work with other groups because we thought it'd be disingenuous to have that mission and not work with like-minded people. So we have what we call our $5 back program. And for another 501c3 in any community, and we work with groups as large as Gary Sinise and as small as a Boy Scout troop in a little community, whatever their project and whatever their community thing is that they're working on. So they can set up a page with Wreaths Across America, and for every wreath that's sponsored for the cemetery of their choice, we give $5 back to their 501c3 to help with things for living veterans and people in the community in need. And to date, we've put $22 million back into local communities. So all of those factors together, the teach aspect, that curriculum that we have is free and downloaded, and it is literally all we can do to keep up with the demand for information. So we impact communities more than just with the wreath land, but that is the time when it brings people together. And we get letters after letters. I didn't realize that this person served with my dad, or we even had a group one time. The family was estranged, and there happened to be a news video of the cemetery, and it showed all the wreaths and all the graves. But when it came in, it literally came in focused on one soldier's grave. And these kids who hadn't talked to each other forever started calling up, "Oh my God, Dad's stone was just on the news." And the next year, I cry here, they came. The family came, and they put their differences aside, and they came. And we call them God winks. We're not a religious organization. That is the term that the Gold Star mothers have shared with us. And there are many, many times when great healing has taken place by people coming together.
Karen, tell us all about how 1-800-Flowers is working with you this year to help you to increase the number of wreaths you place on grave sites.
Well, my understanding is, and you got to remember that there are people that fill me in on this, but that we're going to have a presence on your social media and on your pages, that people will have the opportunity to support Wreaths Across America, and we just appreciate that so much. There are so many people who have a loved one, and we get letters every day from especially elderly people who would like to have that wreath placed on a loved one's grave and just don't have the opportunity to do it. So just by sharing the word about us, this interview, opportunity to be seen in association with a company as well known and respected as yours. It's just, I can't say enough about it.
We have a guy here who's championing this internally, Pete Olivetto, who is very excited about us creating an opportunity for our community members for $17 to be able to donate a wreath that they know was going to go on to a veteran's gravesite and be part of this program. He's just all excited about it personally, and that we can bring this to our community, help you. But in helping you, we're helping ourselves. We're helping our community to do something good, to be part of something more meaningful. And then the next step is, how do we get people from our community to engage with yours, to like we're going to do, to go be your volunteers. We have our own charity here that 1-800-Flowers started, called Smile Farms. It's an organization where we create work opportunities for people with disabilities, mostly developmental disabilities, because we have a brother who's in that circumstance and works in one of our greenhouses. But we're going to bring our Smile Farm staffers out, like my brother Kevin, to do this, because as we know, jobs are a lot more than a paycheck. And our Smile Farmers, staffers, have become their own sub-community. So the 36 who work in a greenhouse with my brother Kevin, they're genuinely a community. And they've been working together now for years, and they feel good about themselves, and they're part of the community, and they're earning money, and they're giving it back. They give away their money that they make a lot too, and they like to give away their time. We because we have some skills at Smile Farms, we maintain community recognition spots. We maintain cemeteries that have maybe gone uncared for, and so these are people who just give of themselves like you couldn't believe, and so they're excited about coming and helping place the wreaths too. But Pete has us all excited about our ability to turn our community onto the good works that you're doing, and to help create community and to shine a light on the good work that you and the other organizations you work with around the country are doing. Do I understand that it's about 1.6 million wreaths that you're currently placing each year?
Oh no, this year will be, we're growing so quickly that we're on track right now to have a little over 4,000 locations and place probably a little over 3 million wreaths.
Wow.
It's crazy. You know, I do want to share with you, and you'll appreciate this because you are 1-800-Flowers, that one of the sweetest stories I ever heard was actually then Governor Paul LePage, somebody that worked in his office. We actually were invited to on our way to Allen to stop at an event, and this woman got up and spoke, and she had lost her son a few years before that, and he was buried in the cemetery there in Augusta. And she told a story about hate in the holiday, and it was close to Christmas. The wreath had been placed, but she didn't know, and she hadn't heard of it at that point. But she left work, and you know how we get so used to driving the same road over and over, you kind of get there without noticing anything. So she got to the
that autopilot.
It's true, we do it. So she got to the cemetery. She was still preoccupied. She had called home. She was doing all these things. And it wasn't until she got to her son's grave and she went down on her knees, and here was this wreath, and the smell. So I get the smell of it to her, and that it was alive. You know, it was the smell, and the fragrance, and the bow, and the fact that it was circular, but mostly the fact that somebody else had been there and put it there, and how that whole experience of it being a gift from somebody that was placed there, and the smells. It said that she had hated going to that cold stone, but having that wreath there meant so much to her, and so she is now participates with us every year. But it's the same thing when people. That's why people send flowers to people who are sick. It's why people have flowers at funerals, and you certainly know this. And I related to it. I'm a great hand for quotes. Nothing, no wisdom of my own. So I grab quotes, but it was, and I'm paraphrasing, but Pericles, so it's an old quote, said that it isn't what we leave behind is not what's engraved on a granite stone, but what we weave in the lives of others. And I think that's what happens when we all come together on a day that isn't a holiday. Wreaths Across America Day is probably one of the busiest Saturdays in the year for anybody. And
For everybody, sure.
people come out by the literally millions and bring their kids and take time to embrace those goals for our families, but also the most important piece, like I say, to teach. And it's been just such a blessing to my family, and we're just so honored to be able to do it. And I just pray we continue to be able to do it.
So this year, 2023, it's December 16th, Saturday, December 16th. Wreaths Across America will be energizing individuals and communities and organizations across the country to take time out of their day to think about those who've served, those who gave their lives one way or the other, in defense of our country, in defense of our principles and our freedoms and our communities. And they come together to remember that, to commemorate that, and do something, frankly, that's beneficial for them too. Because the act of giving is one of the most precious things we can do. And at the end of the day, what we've discovered here in our work, helping people to express themselves and connect to all the important people in their lives, in our case, usually through sending of a gift of one kind or another. But what we've learned is that giving is the gift. And I just had a chance to interview a new friend who's a scientist. And I asked him, I said, is there a scientific basis for the fact that, well, we've come to a conclusion that giving is the gift? Is there scientific evidence to support that? Oh, yes, he told us. In fact, you can measure empirically the increase of dopamine in our brains when we're in the act of giving. And there's 4,000 communities that are going to be filled with people who are experiencing the good thoughts of creating a teaching moment for themselves and for the people around them, for doing something for their community, for doing something for the families of the fallen, for those Gold Star families. They're giving and doing for someone else, and that is, in fact, a gift to themselves. What you do, what you've organized is fantastic, Karen. I'm proud that 1-800-Flowers is partnering with you. Thank you, Pete, for making this happen, introducing us to Karen and Morel Worcester, to the wonderful people, to your 6 kids and 9 grandkids who I can't imagine the benefits of that for you, and from a spiritual point of view and from a practical point of view, the lessons learned there. I bet it's a pretty special community you live in there in the coast of Maine, just an hour south of Canada. And I'm so glad that our paths have crossed and that we'll get to work together, and that you gave us this wonderful idea of something we can do as a group in Smile Farms, as a group at 1-800-Flowers, our Worth Media partners, and for the McCann family. I'm so excited about this teaching opportunity, this teaching lesson for our grandkids, because they're always looking for excuses to spend time with them, to teach them something, to do something special with them, get them to think. And you gave us all of that. Karen, thank you.
Thank you so much. We so appreciate it.
By the way, is there a website we can direct our community to learn more about?
Yes, it's wreathsacrossamerica.org.
We'll see you on December 16th, if not in person, in spirit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And my husband really is going to be jealous, because he loves what you've done. He's such an entrepreneur. He's just amazing. Family business is the best, I think.
Well, it's what our country's built on, and there's a reason. Who else is going to work this hard but family members?
I know. That's why I have so many kids.
You needed a rest.
You needed more. That's why you're a little behind me. My base is brought up.
I'm going to do my best to catch up.
Oh, good. You do that. Thanks you so
Karen.
much. Yeah. Bye-bye.